Hi, everyone. Harold Simansky of MBA Mission here. I hope you're all doing well. Let me just quickly ask you, where are folks calling in from or joining us from? If you want to just put that in the comment side, that would be terrific. And let me just give me a minute here. Okay, then. So with that in mind, why don't we get started? And let me just open this up, everybody. Here we go. Okay, at this point, yeah, let's just do it. Hopefully everyone can hear me. If you have any comments, I will be looking for them in the comment section here. So by all means, put something in. I will occasionally stop to answer whatever questions you might have. But let's get going here. So this presentation is called 3 Key Ingredients of Every Winning Essay Revealed. And what you will see here is, as it says, 3 very important points that you want to make sure that you make for every essay you write. And we'll get into what we mean here. And what do we see here? A few people from India, from Indonesia. Very exciting. Welcome. I'm excited to hear from you. So with that in mind, let's get going. Okay. So first of all, what are those key ingredients? And really, they are all about ensuring that you give context to your story, are very clear about the goals that you have in going to business school, as well as what the fit is. Not just why you need an MBA, but why you needed an MBA at a particular school. So with that in mind, let's get into each one of these individually. Okay, so establishing context. And by context, we mean here really, who are you? What makes you tick? Why are you applying to business school? Okay, so for Stanford, the question is specifically why Stanford? And it gives you about 400 words to explain. The next one is, how do you plan to use the Wharton MBA program to help you achieve your future professional goals? You might consider your past experience, short and long-term goals, and resources available at Wharton. Interesting question. Clearly, it's looking for context. Clearly, it's looking for goals, and clearly, it's looking for school-specific information. And finally, at HBS, briefly tell us about your career aspirations. Very short question, but also very important question in terms of, okay, what are you going to do with this wonderful, expensive, world-known education? So let's give you a few examples of where what some of these answers might at first look like. These would look like these answers if you don't end up following our suggestions or working with us. So first simple answer is, I want to become president of the Red Sox. And for those of you outside of the United States, the Red Sox are the baseball team for my hometown of Boston, Massachusetts, the greatest sports team in the world. And they've had quite a checkered history, but once you're a Red Sox fan, you're a Red Sox fan. So with that in mind, okay, that seems, something reasonable. But again, I don't have any context. Who are you? Another example is having risen from analytical specialist to assistant general manager for the Lowell Spinners, the Red Sox affiliate. It's like their minor league team. I now consider what once seemed just a dream, serving as president of the Boston Red Sox, an aggressive pursuit. Okay, immediately we think to ourselves, I have some context now. That makes for a substantially better answer. And you see how I went from very simple 4 words to maybe 40 words, less than that. I am pursuing my MBA to transition into consulting, where I aspire to be a partner within 6 years. I don't know who you are. I don't know what context this is. I don't know why an MBA fits your needs. I don't know what you mean by consulting. So let's try the next one. A math degree, 2 years of teaching math with TFA, and 3 years in data sciences at General Mills have made me eager to apply analytical thinking, but with a greater breadth. So consulting speaks to me. And again, far better information. But let's even sort of really drill down on this. Okay. When we're talking about context or goals, well, we always want to make sure that what you explain, what you say you quote want to be, is both achievable and aspirational. Or to turn it around, why should I believe you? If I'm an admissions committee member, why should I believe you? And by achievable, we mean, is it reasonable that that's something you do? And aspirational, is it reasonable that you need business school to take that next step? Is it something more closer to a dream? Again, business schools are really not in the business of teaching you things that you can learn on your own that doesn't change your career path. Business schools want to see you dreaming, but at the same point, they want to make sure that what you dream of is actually aspirational, something you can accomplish. So the first one is, I want to be president of the Red Sox. Is it aspirational? Of course. It's a wonderful dream job. Is it achievable? Don't know. We don't know who you are. We don't know anything about you. So look at how it is written next. Having risen from an analytical specialist to assistant general manager of the Louisville Spinners, again, the minor league team, the Red Sox affiliate, how can I now consider what once seemed to be a dream, serving as president of the Boston Red Sox, an aggressive pursuit? Is it achievable? Absolutely. They've just explained quite a bit of who they are, and aspirational. Like we said before, president of the Red Sox, yes. I'm pursuing my MBA to transition to consulting, where I aspire to rise to partner in 6 years. Is it achievable? I don't know. I don't know who you are. If I'm the admissions committee member, I'm like, I guess it's so. I mean, I don't know a thing about you. And aspirational, again, I don't know. Is being a partner in 6 years, is that a real dream? Is that something that changes the world? Again, I'm not so sure about that, but it's one of those things, could be. So from the perspective, okay, let's layer in something else. A math degree, 2 years teaching with TFA, and 3 years in data science at General Mills have made me eager to apply my analytical thinking, but with a greater breadth. So consulting speaks to me. Achievable, yes. You've just laid out a great example there of a great career path, great steps you can take to achieve the career you want. Aspirational, sort of. And what I mean by that is, okay, where does all of this end? You haven't made it clear where this ends. Hey, some people say I can't see the video. As of right now, let me know in the chat if you can see the video. I can see it. Hopefully the rest of you can see it. Can everyone see the video? I'm going to assume you can. Okay, let's talk about what actually are logical goals, or again, this idea here of what business schools are looking for, what good essays have, is this notion of, okay, real goals and goals that are, once again, ambitious, goals that you're reaching, goals that you need a business school education for. And so let's talk about some goals that are thrown around in terms of, are they ambitious? Are they logical? And these are goals that one frequently sees in business school essays. The first one is speechwriter for hedge fund analyst. They want to go from being a speechwriter to working at a hedge fund. Another is a PE associate to an entrepreneur. A lot of PE associates out there, a lot of investment bank associates to become an entrepreneur. Is it both plausible? Is it logical? We'll talk more about that. Teacher to consultant, again, you hear it all the time. Does it make sense? PE associate to PE vice president. And again, something that you hear not infrequently. How do business schools, how does the admissions community actually interpret this? Well, let's think about that for a second. Getting back into this achievable, is it something that's logical, meaning is it reasonable that it happens? And is it ambitious, meaning is it what Stanford calls the ability to change lives, change organizations, and change the world? So let's go through it here one at a time. Speechwriter to a hedge fund analyst. Is it ambitious? Yes. I mean, a lot of people want to work for hedge funds. The reality is that's something that's very exciting, makes you a lot of money. But is it logical? And the answer is no. I really don't know how one goes from being a speechwriter, no analytical abilities, no experience in business, not really doing anything that even remotely close to what a hedge fund does. So doesn't seem to be a logical step, or at least you have to explain to the admissions committee why that is a logical step. What steps you need to take to get there. PE associated to an entrepreneur, is it ambitious? I guess so. I guess being an entrepreneur is ambitious. Being an entrepreneur myself, yes, it certainly is. Is it logical? No, probably not. And this is a mistake that a lot of people make. This idea here of, I will look at resumes and people will say, okay, I've gone straight ahead, great school. At that point, I became a consultant or investment banking associate. At that point, maybe I took a next step, worked in private equity. And then they say, I want to be an entrepreneur. And I frequently push back and people say, but you've never shown anything entrepreneurial. This notion here of, okay, you want to really go from a very traditional job, a very traditional career path, very low risk career path. Doesn't mean you don't work hard, but a low risk career path to being an entrepreneur. You have to tell me more. And you have to tell me either how you were an entrepreneur in the past, Maybe it's something you did in addition to work. You set up a little online store, or you have to tell me something in terms of what type of entrepreneur. You worked in ed tech as an investment bank covering the ed tech sector. You want to go into ed tech yourself. Okay, that seems logical, but you must tell me more. Teacher to consultant. Again, ambitious. Maybe it's ambitious. I guess it depends on what type of consultant. Logical. Again, maybe it's logical, but in either case, you really have to prove to me that business school is going to be the bridge to these two things and why they make sense. PE associate to PE vice president, ambitious, probably not. And the reason I say logical, absolutely. And the reason I say it's not so ambitious is because you don't really need business school for that. You're working at a PE firm. Now it's not irregular for PE associates to then go off and stay around, eventually become a vice president or a partner. So from that perspective, business schools admissions committee will look at that and say, this guy doesn't need business school. We don't know why he's going. He certainly doesn't seem like he'll be a unique voice in the class. We can fill our classes with somebody who's going from a PE associate to a PE vice president. Our firm once computed that there was something like 300 McKinsey, Bain, or BCG consultants, junior, senior consultants, analysts applying for business school. And that's the same case here. There's probably 300 PE associates applying to business school. What makes you think you're going to be the next one? What makes you think you're going to be better? So for someone like this, actually, it's very important for them to prove why business school is the right choice for them. Okay, let's keep on doing it because this is so important. Where people go wrong is that they talk about ambition wrong. Their logic isn't there. And honestly, it's just as the admissions committee shaking their head. It's like they don't really know much about you. And candidly, it ends up with a lot of disappointed people who have great credentials, but they've never made the case for business school. And they're not particularly excited. So suddenly it's, okay, let's start drilling down a little bit more. Teacher to consultant to partner. Again, not much there. Teacher to consultant to launch a specialized boutique education-oriented company. Maybe. That starts getting more interesting. Teacher to consultant to ed tech entrepreneur. Maybe. And teacher to consultant to marketing director at Fortune 500 company. I don't think so. And let's think about why. Teacher consultant to partner. Okay, there's a maybe there. But what does this actually look like? These, in many ways, are very empty words. What are you talking about? What type of teacher? Where would you be a consultant? A partner of what? Teacher to consultant to launch a specialized boutique education-oriented consultancy? Yeah, maybe. Again, it strikes me as logical, but at the same point, it's not fully baked. Do you really know what you need? Do you really mean consultant? Specialized boutique education-oriented consultancy? I'm not even sure those exist. I shouldn't say that. They do exist, but you have to convince the admissions committee you know what you're talking about. I would put a name in here. Specialized boutique education-oriented consultancy like ... And it's worth it for even you to find a name, again, to show the logic here, to show you know exactly where you're going, that there is a role for you, a place for you. There are steps you can take that are very deliberate. Teacher, consultant, ed tech, entrepreneur. Yes, that can probably work. Probably need a little bit more information, probably need to sort of fill in what type of teacher, what type of consultant, but certainly an ed tech entrepreneur under the right circumstances. And it wouldn't necessarily mean founding a company, but I could see you this person working at a Series A, Series B funded company that really speaks to whatever they taught in the past. Teacher, consultant, marketing director of Fortune 500 company. I mean, I don't know how one would even get there. One doesn't go from consulting to becoming a marketing director. If you want to go to business school and take a big step to the side, and at that point say, okay, I'm a teacher, but I'm going to go to a very strong marketing school and really proving to business school, staying in business school. I'm going to your school to study marketing in a unique way, then getting sort of that initial post-MBA marketing job, and 20 years later be director of marketing at a Fortune 500 company. That's a logical trajectory, a long trajectory. It speaks to what you need to learn in business school. So from that point, always think to yourself, what am I writing in terms of my career goals? Does it make sense? Why should I believe you? Is it specific enough? Is it something that could really happen? That's what business schools are looking for. Okay, now let's talk even a little bit deeper here. My short-term goals, again, let's stay on goals. Let's think about logic here. A short-term goal, when I graduate, I want to join and modernize a vineyard. Thereafter, I will climb the ladder and become a partner in this vineyard. I could say it, anybody could say it. And the reality is that anybody can say it. That means it's probably not particularly valuable. I don't know anything about you. It seems like you read this off the back of a magazine. It seems like it's not particularly, again, credible. It seems like a bunch of steps were missing here. When I graduate, I'll continue on my path in the wine industry. Okay, already we're seeing some context here. The person already works in the wine industry. Only now on the manufacturing side, okay, they're taking a step to the side, to the manufacturing side. Okay, they may need to prove to the business schools that they know what they're talking about. Maybe they're going to business school to study manufacturing. And that's something business schools should know. I hope to join a small vineyard and apply skills I learned in my MBA to the betterment of the organization in the future. Okay, now it starts breaking down a little bit. I hope to join a small vineyard. Okay, that's completely reasonable. To apply the skills I learned in my MBA to the betterment of the organization in the future. Anybody can say that. I'm not quite sure what to do with that. I don't know what skills you're talking about here. And again, you talked about manufacturing above, but is this manufacturing these different skills? I don't know. I will seek to start or purchase a vineyard, employ the techniques I have learned in my career during my entrepreneurial days. Do you have entrepreneurial days? It's not clear to me. Also, you want to purchase a vineyard? You've sort of lost me here. I stopped believing you at some point. Okay, so now let's get to something that's a lot richer, something that really speaks to context, ambition, logic. With my background as a wine journalist, okay, we know this person is in the industry, probably has a great vantage point as a journalist. I am well aware of the traditional aspects of winemaking industry and recognize that many vintners are slow to adapt modern manufacturing and marketing techniques. Okay, it's a little bit of a leap of faith on the reader's part in terms of, okay, you're telling me you are familiar with modern manufacturing and marketing techniques that small vineyards lack them. I'm going to believe you here. Okay, I'm going to leave you here. This idea, you're a wine journalist, maybe you know what you're talking about. I'm going to say, okay, as an admissions committee member, I believe you. I'll feel a little bit better if you told me what you're going to learn at business school, but that's a different question. With my MBA, I will have specific entrepreneurial operational skills necessary to develop a small vineyard and nurture it so that I realize its full potential. So what you're saying to me here is you want to go to business school and get some operational entrepreneurial skills. Fine. You then, in a different essay, your other essay, you have to tell me exactly how you're going to learn that in business school. I see myself as a general manager of an antiquated vineyard in the ABC region. Okay. At this point, is that the right first goal? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to me to believe that you will be the first general manager, but we'll give you a pass on that. And maybe the first job is actually working in an antiquated vineyard in the ABC region. By the way, I like the ABC region. It shows that they know what they're talking about. But okay, not bad. Implementing operational efficiencies, access and capital for growth, and marketing superior product nationally and internationally. Okay, aggressive. Definitely aggressive. Definitely ambitious. You better be telling me how you're going to learn some of that stuff in business school. But overall, this is a much better goal than the other ones. Again, much richer. And that's what we're looking for here. Is it rich? Is it logical? Does it show you know the industry? What you're talking about makes sense? Do I believe this can happen for you? And again, this looks good. Do I need more information? Other essays? Probably. Okay. Now, the long-term goal, I do see it coming together. In the long term, I would build on the success of this endeavor. Sounds like that they just were able to do something in an individual vineyard and would source and acquire multiple vineyards in need of modernization. Okay, very aspirational. Logical? I hope so. It is very aspirational. Some schools I'd be more comfortable with than other schools. Stanford, I'd be very comfortable with this. Wharton, less so. But the reality is that, okay, my comfort level is pretty good. I certainly see the logical steps here. Ultimately, I see my role in the firm as one of portfolio manager, actively managing several vineyards and making decisions about capital allocation with leveraging operational market efficiencies too. Okay, so what this, and again, very aspirational. I love the specificity here. I love how you're really digging into what you will do. I'm still not sure it's 100% logical. I'd still probably sharpen it up a little bit. from maybe in your short-term goals. Maybe in this case, instead of just short-term and long-term goals, you have medium-term goals. But again, you want to take very specific steps. You want to say, I'm going to do A, I'm going to do B, I'm going to do C. I'm able to do that because the context is I've already been working in this industry. Okay, now where most business schools essays go wrong, and this is particularly the case for international students. I cannot stress this enough. Most business school essays go wrong because they answer the question, why an MBA, and not why a specific school. And again, business schools are not interested in why you go to business school. Business schools are really interested in what you want to learn in business school and why it is so important that you go to their particular business school. That you want to go to Stanford, not Wharton, then you want to go to Wharton, not Harvard. And the reality is that your essays will be better than 75% of the people, 90% of international students, if you explain why a particular school. And again, for international students, many of you are going to be applying to the top 5, top 10 schools with somewhat indifferent to which one you go to. That may be the case, which is fine, but at least indicate the school that you know enough to know how this school is different from that school. So let me get into that and what I mean. Okay, first example here. And we talk in different ways, want versus school-specific plan of attack. And what we really are just saying here is that when you're talking about a fit with a school, what it really means is you have to have a step-by-step details about what you will do at that school. And truly a plan of attack, and make sure that it is, again, school-specific, that this can't be said at another school. So let me give you an example. Stanford is a great school for entrepreneurs, and Silicon Valley is an exciting place to take for me to take professional risks because so many great fortunes have been built there. I really believe that the Center for Entrepreneurial Studies offers the wealth of resources necessary for me to take the next step as an entrepreneur. I hate this. I hate this sentence. It's a waste of words, and let me show you why. I have now rewritten the exact same sentence by changing 5 words for now it to be HBS specific. HBS is a great, so word 1, HBS is a great school for entrepreneurs, and Boston, as opposed to Silicon Valley, that's word 2, is an exciting place for me to take professional risk because so many great fortunes have been built there. Okay, fine. Don't learn anything different. I really believe that the Arthur Rock Center for Entrepreneurship, as opposed to the Stanford Center for Entrepreneurship, as opposed to the Wharton Center for Entrepreneurship. So again, let's call that as 3 words, offers the wealth of resources necessary for me to take the next step as an entrepreneur. This has the only thing this essay has showed, the only thing this sentence has shown is you haven't done your homework. This idea here, there's a lot of general language here. It's impressive to nobody. At that point, it's a big waste of words, and you don't have a lot of words. So what would a good why particular school answer read? Why particular school? And let me show you here. As an aspiring entrepreneur in the online education field, already we're seeing some details. I know that flexibility will be crucial to my success and that I will need to constantly challenge my assumptions. Okay, fine. It's a little bit of throwaway language, but that's fine. For this reason, I would seize the opportunity to help organize the Goldman Sachs Stanford University Global Conference at Stanford GSB. Okay. No other school has a global education conference. So at that point, already it's something that is much more Stanford specific. Bob Smith, class of 2020. And again, Bob Smith only went to Stanford. You're only talking about a Stanford person. You've done your homework. You've reached out to Bob Smith. You've talked to them. You now understand how Stanford is different. Got me excited about the entrepreneurship and innovation in EdTech class. Again, very specific class. And again, Bob Smith told you about it. And opportunities for GSB students to take courses at the education school, which I intend to do. Again, not every school can you take courses at the education school. So again, something unique to Stanford. This is a very Stanford-rich essay question, group of sentences. So we're excited about that. This is a much better sentence than, again, the previous one, which is, I can say it about anything. Okay, now let's get even more detailed here in terms of, why Stanford? Again, this is the actual question. Why Stanford? Take a minute to read this. Actually, don't read it yet. Don't take a minute to read this. Instead, read my edit. And very quickly here, interdid really there's only 400 words, and so much of it doesn't work, honestly. And what you can see here in that first paragraph rather, is again something that can be said at any school. The question is not why business school. The question is why Stanford. How much of the above is actually Stanford specific? Interdisciplinary. To me, this is not a buzzword, but critical of attaining my goal of becoming a senior leader of management consulting in 3 years at McKinsey. I've seen how recommendations were, I'll get blah, 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 blah. There's nothing here that's Stanford specific. Again, that question is why Stanford. The Stanford GSB is my focus precisely because interdisciplinary learning is core to its philosophy, and indeed that of all 7 schools. 7 schools of different graduate schools at Stanford. When you talk interdisciplinary, you don't think Stanford, you think Wharton. So immediately, this strikes me as something I was written for Wharton. Broadening my academic knowledge base, gaining deeper self-awareness, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Didn't really answer the question, why Stanford? They already know what you've done. At this point, it's like you've wasted all of that space. Okay. Finally, though, you do throw in some great GSB stuff. Executive Challenge and Leadership Lab. Okay, solid course. The D School Design School, very much a Stanford. The targeted offerings will allow me to collaborate with colleagues across campus and considering some of the most vexing interdisciplinary challenge of our time. The language is a little soft, but I like the fact how you wrote about the D School. Through its core and especially boost classes, again, only Stanford has boost classes, such as designing courageous conversations for impact. That's a Stanford course. That is a unique Stanford course. And designing for equitable futures, again, a unique Stanford course. I'll immerse myself in the type of creative ideation that fosters thought leadership clients expect and demand. Okay, sort of a mushy ending, but that's all right. I am determined to pursue an Arbuckle Fellowship as opposed to a fellowship at Wharton, which is basically, I forgot the name, it is the same thing. Even more to the point, there is very rarely do I not see in the first draft of a Stanford essay someone mentioning the Arbuckle Fellowship. It is certainly worthwhile. It's a wonderful program. I encourage people to do it. You don't have to write about it. Everyone does it. Everyone writes about it. At this point, it's a waste of space. It says nothing that is unique to you. It says nothing that's unique to Stanford. What is unique, though, is they went to visit the school. They spoke to Kirsten Moss and several fellow female applicants. Great. You got to know the school by actually being there, not by reading about it on the website, not by doing sort of a webinar that everyone else does. Some soft language in here, insight into the unachievably ambitious community. I would be trying, okay, that's sort of soft, but it's not a bad transition. As an aspiring female leader, I appreciate seeing such courses as Power of You, Women in Leadership, a unique Stanford course, and the continued development of Alumni Women's Circle. Yes, all schools have alumni networks, but Women's Circle is a little bit unique to Stanford. Okay, so at this point, so we have some nice Stanford things there, certainly, but 400 words. You've used about 200 words to achieve your goal of saying how you were truly unique, about how you're unique and Stanford is unique. Okay, let's get on to, let me do this. Everyone read what I see is a very strong Wharton MBA essay and look it over. Hopefully by now you can understand what I mean. It will be logical, it'll be ambitious, it will be specific. It'll answer the question, why X, why Wharton? Why doesn't everyone look at that for a minute? And let me answer some questions. So please ask your questions now. Okay, I'm not seeing a lot of questions here. So let me go back to this. Listen, I think at the end of the day, this is a very strong Wharton MBA, because at the end of the day, they talk a lot about who they are. And again, this is sort of a unique question. What do you hope to gain professionally from the Wharton MBA? The reality is that it's 500 words. You do have to tell quite a bit about yourself. And people will frequently ask me, okay, what's the right mix between, and the question itself is even a little broader now. What's the right mix about talking about Wharton, about talking about yourself? I would say about half and half. the reality is you do have to share with them who you are and how you got to these goals. So that's what you see up in the first paragraph, basically. And again, not a perfect, but certainly important background information. And then we start getting into things like mentioning actual courses, product design, marketing, and electronic commerce, and this idea here of, okay, meeting with people who are coming to campus, um, um, like the CEO of Strava, Mark Gain. Again, some of this, we're getting the sense from that this person has gone out and actually done some research, is highlighting those things that are maybe beyond the website. Then actually they sort of know how the pieces fit together, what's happening inside the classroom, what's happening outside the classroom, who's on campus. And honestly, then they're able to talk about a specific Wharton person, which is great. If I had to make one suggestion where most people fall down, is this notion here of they don't even bother to talk to people at the school. And at the end of the day, you're essentially buying a product. So if you were going to buy a car, you do more research about what made the car good or bad. If you have a friend who drives the car, you certainly talk to them. And it's sort of amazing the number of people who, again, just sort of crib off of the school website rather than necessarily doing any sort of research indicating that how serious they are about the school. And again, they see that school different than any other school out there. The question is, again, what do you have to gain professionally from the Wharton MBA, not just from an MBA, but from the Wharton MBA? This is a good essay. Again, not a perfect essay, but that's all right. And just to continue on here, obviously there's going to be a few questions here, but before we get to this, which is in many ways the harder set of questions, which are the why questions. On the one hand, they're harder. On the other hand, there's no wrong answer. So when it comes to the questions, the why MBA, why Stanford, why Wharton, those are the questions. Are people make more mistakes in those questions than in the why questions? And we'll get into that. And we have a couple questions here. What have been the strongest career changer stories you've seen? Finding it tough to find the silver lining across my stories. The reality is that, listen, everyone's different. I think if you are changing careers, certainly there's an opportunity. There may be an opportunity to talk about maybe a love that you have, professional skills that you've developed, and at that point you combine the two. And the way to combine the two is going to business school. For example, you've always been a musician, you love music. At the same point, you've been in corporate finance. So you want to combine the two in order to take a step to the side to do corporate finance in the music industry. I think you always have to at least have some connection, whether it's even just an informal connection, whether it's just something that you love to do, in order to then propel you into different career paths. And maybe even if just you love reading and you want to go into the book publishing industry, really anything that helps someone connect the dots, where you don't say, I've done X, 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 and then I want to become an astronaut. You're right, that's not going to make a lot of sense. Part of it is just skill development. During your current job, you really enjoyed this. You're in an accounting. You've been able to see people around the table, the strategists around the table. You really like what they're doing. At that point, then you got to have something to hold on to so that business schools believe that you have some connection. So again, no perfect answer here. I will suggest people at the end spend 30 minutes on the phone with me or one of my colleagues, free 30 minutes, and maybe we can help you think that through. Basically, the answer why certain school is it highly recommended to interact with specific school persons? Do you think website alone will not help to write a good answer? The short answer is yes. I don't think the information you get off of a website is fine, great for preliminary research. It's not going to be particularly value add. When all said and done, everyone's going to be looking at the same information. It doesn't say anything that's unique to you. Also, when I'm talking about people, I'm really talking about students. It's the job of the admissions committee members to speak to folks. It also is the answers you get from them are pretty, general. So if you want to make the point that you really know the school, you've gone out, you've talked to actual students there, and then you've also been able to identify those things that are happening at the school that you're excited about, but that aren't on the website. things that obviously require a lot more research. I know that Stanford places a lot of weight on what matters the most to you question. Any unique tips for the essay? Yep, I'll get to that in a minute. Do you think it's logical going from an audit, then an MBA, and then MBB, and then as a long-term goal, entrepreneurship? The way I think that would work is you'd have to develop some sort of expertise. So you could say, for example, that you wanted to join McKinsey's energy group and then be an energy entrepreneur. I think that makes sense. But I think you really do. What's going to make or break that is the level of specificity you can actually include there. It certainly makes sense to go from audit to an MBA because certainly working in audit, you've probably been exposed to at least some strategy decisions. Maybe you played out in terms of the corporate finance decisions. But if you can say, I've really gotten excited about what some of my colleagues are doing in the corporate development world. I really want to understand how all the pieces come together. Audit is one small piece of the world. I want to understand how all sorts of things have come together. And that's why strategy might make sense for me. But entrepreneurship, you're going to have to be really super specific about why that makes sense. I generally follow up with the matter I've written. How do I truly evaluate what sections of the essays are unimportant? How should I edit my essays while being critical? No perfect answer here. That's what we do. You can have a friend do it. You can look at examples online. No perfect answer. Okay, somebody asked about the why questions. And let's touch on them just a little bit because they're hard. On the one hand, they're very hard. On the other hand, there's no wrong answer. So let's first all review them. As we review your application, what more would you like us to know as we consider your candidacy for the Harvard Business School MBA program? What matters most to you and why? So let me just touch on these questions and add a little nuance here. As we review your application, so immediately you know they've read everything. What more would you like us to know as we consider your candidacy for the Harvard Business School MBA program? First of all, it's what more? What drives this question is the more. And again, they've seen all of your application. So now they're asking themselves, really, how do these pieces fit together? Why does this make sense? Again, how does the logic hold here? What other aspects of your life in some ways buttress all that you've written, all that you've done? And what I tell people, it's a great place to surprise the admission committee, to tell them something about you that may not be so obvious from your resume, from other things that you've done. And really, it is a question of you looking back through your history and thinking to yourself, okay, what is something that's really been important to me, impactful to me, a big piece of my life that it's not reflected here? And what matters most to you and why? Sort of I would call it the little brother of the Harvard question. I always add on to this, what matters most to you and why, and prove it to me. So, and what I mean by that is about 2/3 of the people will write something like, 2/3 of the people will say family. What matters most to me is family and why. And then prove it to me as well. All of us have a family. so it's not enough to say that. What matters most to you and why is, well, my family matters most to me because I took a year off from school to care for my sick father. And then at that point, I specifically gave up the high life of Wall Street and moved back to Indiana to be with my family and help with the family business. I mean, again, you really will always want to be prepared to prove these things. It's easy to say what matters most to you. And instead, the question is, show me what matters most to you and prove it to me. And I think, again, these are hard questions because they require a lot of introspection, a lot of brainstorming, a lot of really digging deep. These are not questions that can be done particularly quickly. These questions that start very broad. And the reality is that you can sift through a lot of information and eventually and it takes a long time to eventually get to that one true unique story that only you can tell, that nobody else can tell. Again, maybe, what makes these essays so challenging? Open-ended questions. There is no right answer, meaning open-ended questions, you can write anything you want. There's no right answer. Deeply personal. It is frequently said about a Stanford essay that and HBS by extension, Stanford's a little bit more personal. If you were to leave your essay on the printer at work, if any of us still go to work, you'd be a little bit embarrassed. You wouldn't necessarily be wholly embarrassed. It's sort of be intimate details that maybe you don't want to share with everyone. Values driven. And it's also, that's more this idea here. It's going to reflect who you are from a very foundational perspective, who you are, what do you like to do, what has really driven you. Avoid pandering. It's very easy to think to yourselves, the admissions committee wants to hear one thing or another thing. That what matters most to you and why has to be some earth shattering that no one's ever said before. Like I said, probably 2/3 of the people write about family. So don't think about what they want to hear. Instead, really get very personal, understand yourself. Again, it is hard to do. The essays themselves, 900 words, 650 words. Again, not huge, bigger than most, but not huge. But at the end of the day, it has to be personal. Approaching what more, and this again is the HBS question, approaching what more, black and white versus color. I think the point that we're trying to make here is your resume is black and white. What have you done? Color really says, the why have you done it? Why have things been important to you? What has been your motivation? Why did you take, left turn, right turn? Career goals. Career goals is generally not in the what more essay. It generally is contained in a very simple single question, and part of that is business schools. Now, Harvard makes it clear they know you're going to change your mind while you're there, so you don't have to spend a lot of time on career goals. Why an MBA and why Harvard Business School? I'd say about a third of my 2/3 of clients I work with do not answer these questions in the Harvard essay. Why an MBA? Why an HBS? HBS sort of knows why HBS. Why an MBA? They sort of take it for granted. You know why an MBA? So about 2/3 of the essays that I help my clients write don't answer these questions. About a third do. And the third that do is because it's not obvious why these folks are getting an MBA. It could be somebody who's been in a bunch of different jobs and there's concern that they don't know why they're getting an MBA themselves. It's just a place where they can rest and invest. It's just a place where they can figure things out. So in that case, help the admissions committee along by explaining why you need an MBA. Why HBS? I use that even less. Why HBS is, again, because it's HBS. But don't talk about because you love the case method. Everyone talks about that. Sort of don't talk about their field program. Everyone talks about that. Is there a wow factor? Because again, what more? You got to push here. You really have to push. It can't be boring. They're going to read 10,000 essays. It can't be boring. Read aloud. The point about read aloud is just make sure the narrative holds, and as well as this notion here that it's interesting. Unfortunately, many essays are boring, and that's something you really have to push against because you got to have a wow factor. What makes these essays so challenging? And again, we're back to what matters. Stanford question: breaking new ground thematically is nearly impossible. That's right. What matters most to you and why? You are not going to come up with anything new. It's very rare. What matters most to you is family. What matters most to you is authenticity. What matters most to you is, I don't know, dreaming of the future. What matters most to you is caring for others. There's very few what matters most to you themes that they haven't seen before. So in that case, that gives you a lot of freedom. Just go out and find, do the hard work, do the brainstorming, do the introspection so that you find something that's only unique to you. It's not cliche, it's true to who you are. And again, the fact you love family, it's not a cliche, but you have to prove it. You absolutely have to prove it. 650 words, yeah, it's short. In actual fact, the Stanford essays are what matters most to you and why Stanford is in total 1,050 words. Sometimes I break them 650, 400. Sometimes I break them 550, 500. It really is dependent on who the candidate is and what is important to say. In summer, what matters most to me is, and the point here is you don't specifically have to answer that question. What matters most to me is, instead, you could also say, you don't have to use those words, just make it clear in the essay. Wow, again, wow factor. They're going to read hundreds of these, read aloud. Yes, make sure the narrative holds. And if you really want to see what some successful Stanford and HBS essay answers are, then buy our book. What matters and what more. And in total, I think we have something like 50 successful Stanford and HBS essays in there. It's on our website. And I always have mixed feelings about recommending our book because some people think of it as wholly as sort of a blueprint for writing your own essay. And the reality is that's not it at all. What you're going to do is when you're read this, you're going to see a lot of different ways of approaching these questions, a lot of different types of answers, a lot of different structures. But at the end of the day, each one is unique and each one of them is well written. It's a good piece of writing when all said and done. Let me just tell you a little about ourselves. And about MBA Mission, Q&A, and then I'll answer some questions. Listen, we're a great firm. Don't take my word for it. Go look at reviews. We have a lot of stuff you can do for free. One is we have a lot of events. You can download a free start to finish MBA admissions guide, which touches on the process. We have guides about each schools. We have guides about interviews. We have guides about careers. And most importantly, you can all sign up for a free 30-minute consultation with an MBA Admission senior consultant who can answer your questions. 30 minutes with me or someone like me, one of my colleagues. It's just for you. You can ask us whatever you want. We don't sell you. If you want to hear more about our services, we will always volunteer. We're happy to talk about that, but we're not going to sell you. And all of our different services, if you speak to us, we can fill you in more. We help you complete start to finish package, anything having to do with a school's application, anything at all. Hourly services, if you have specific needs, you can look at us. We can work with you on an hour-to-hour basis. Mock interview sessions, we do a lot of mock interview prep, particularly for Harvard and MIT, which are really hard interviews. Wharton team-based discussion. Wharton has a different interview format. And that interview format, they put 6 of you in a virtual room together and have to work on a business case. Pre-application strategy. If you are a couple of years away from applying to business school, maybe you get in touch with us and we help you start laying the groundwork for that. Okay, let me leave the screen up. Here's my name, Harold Simansky, my email address. By all means, email me about anything. Here's our website, mbaMission.com. You can email our general mailbox, info@mbaMission.com. And if you want that free consultation, absolutely free, 30 minutes, you can sign up for it right here. Also on our website, you will see an opportunity to buy that Stanford HBS guide. Okay, now let me look at some questions. I'm going to leave that up there. Okay. How can you justify year-long career gap in your essay with regard to achieving your long, short, and short-term goals? It depends on what you were doing and what the reason was. If it's just for you to go travel the world to expand your horizons, maybe that matters. Maybe that makes sense in what matters most to you, essay. Or what else more do you want them to know? Listen, I've had success. You just have to address the issue. You can't hide from it. You have to have some explanation. Whatever that explanation is, just make sure it's unique. I mean, if the reality is you got burnt out and you had to leave, then maybe that says something with regard to your other essays or what you want to do next. How can I write about transitioning from MBB consulting to entrepreneurship? You have to be really focused on what type of entrepreneurship. You have to explain to me why you're going from the most conservative career, consulting. There's nothing more conservative than consulting. To entrepreneurship, which is most risk by design. It is risk seeking. You have to explain to me why that makes sense. And in general, you can get there frequently with some specifics around the industry. And you have to also be really specific about what entrepreneurship means. Are you starting a company? You're going to an existing company? You're going to work for venture capital? You'd have to be pretty specific about that as well. Seeing that though, and I see that path a lot. And the reality is frequently there's just a lot of work to do to make that credible. An internship and side project that are unrelated to your full-time job considered as good motivators for a school's MBA program. If we frame it as such, yeah, it can be. In fact, it can make it easier for you to talk about a career switch. You've already gotten a taste of something here and you want to pursue it full-time. Would 1 year of MBA program make more sense with 10 years of work experience? Yeah, probably. I think you're aging out to some degree. And there's a lot of great one-year programs. There's a lot of great one-year programs. Sort of some of the more established ones are the Sloan Fellows program at MIT, the Sloan Fellows program at London Business School. Yes, they both have the same name at different schools. And the Stanford MSX program. There's also a program at USC. The programs in Europe generally are 1 year. Please hit the like button if you found it. Hey, Hazaman, you mind sharing it? Okay. Is it okay to be honest about the mistake you have made with regard to your career choice? Yes, absolutely. That could be a great reason why you want to go to business school, to reset things. But you can't end the conversation there. Here's the mistake I made. So what are you going to do about it? How are you going to correct it? How does business school allow you to correct it? And that, I think, really could be, focus of an essay. And again, you'll see that in the chat here. Please sign up for our 30-minute free session. Can a 32-year-old join with 8 years of experience join one of these schools? Yes. I had a client last year, 35 years old in the semiconductor industry. He's at Harvard now. Stanford. I had a client 2 years ago, 34 years old, went to Stanford. The reality is there are reasons. There are better reasons and worse reasons for going to business school when you're older. Better reason is just this notion you've been busy. You've been head down in your career. It's been going great, and finally you're hitting a plateau. And it's taking you 10 years to hit that plateau, but you recognize what it is, you recognize what your limitations are, and then you write an MBA essay about that. Again, at 32 now, it's very clear why you have to go to business school. But at the same point here, if you've just sort of been bouncing around, then that's going to be a really harder story to make. What about language of an essay? Some say that it shouldn't be too much formal nor fictional. I don't know. I'd have to say it myself. Does it help to show a side job in Series C company and resume while doing a full-time job in a big name company? Yes, it does. Absolutely. And again, you could be a launching point for what you want to do as far as that next step goes. Terrific then. Okay, I think we're coming out of time. We're running out of time here. Last call for some last questions. And again, if you don't get your questions answered today, by all means, you can shoot me an email. My email is there, or you can sign up for our 30-minute session. And by all means, take a look at some of our resources. Is it advisable? A couple of questions here. Is it advisable to mention our failures? Yes. At the same point, people frequently learn more from failures than they do successes. And I think it would be a great source of your essay, but it's not just failure, it's what you learn from it as well. Great. Okay, in that case, I wish everyone good luck through this process. It's very exciting. By all means, go to our website, find some of our resources, reach out to us, and good luck. And I hope you enjoyed the webinar today. Bye now.